Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I want to welcome you to another installation of the Zoom In on the Halal Metropolis project. I'm Sally Howell. I'm the director of the Center for Arab American Studies. What we're doing here is we're seeking to both document and learn about all the things that the Muslim community in the metro area is doing to cope with COVID, how the community's faring. And we know that a lot of Muslim community leaders are really on the front line of the pandemic. So we're trying to check in with people and find out how they're doing. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Ahmad Alkaabi to join me in this conversation. How are you, Ahmed?
I'm good, Dr. Howell. How are you?
I'm good. So Ahmed is a former student of ours at the UM-Dearborn. He's an alumnus of the Center for Arab American Studies. He got a minor in Arab American Studies. He's one of a handful of sort of like the first cohort of students that we've had. And we're very proud of Ahmed. He's been doing all sorts of interesting work since he graduated, and he was just hired as the field representative for Congresswoman Debbie Dingell's office in Dearborn and Dearborn Heights. And so I really want to hear from you about what this new job entails.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm excited to be starting this work. I've always wanted to be working in this line of work. This position entails, being the grassroots representation of the Congresswoman, and basically being as accessible as possible to all parts of the community. We have different field representatives that represent different parts of the district. But I specifically work with Dearborn and that small part of Dearborn Heights that we have. So it's basically meeting with communities, seeing their issues, understanding what issues that they have, and trying to relay that over to the Congresswoman and see what we could do within the congressional office to help out that community.
Well, so I know that as an undergraduate, you got a degree in sociology and also the minor in Arab American Studies. And so I feel like you have got to be like really well trained for this job you have. Tell me about that. Tell me about how your education prepared you for this work.
Yeah. So it was sociology and also, another minor in political science as well. So that as well. But I feel like initially going into college, this is not what I wanted to do. But slowly it transitioned into this. It really just molded my path, and it just led me to what I'm doing right now. But the Arab American Studies minor, I was really conflicted on in the beginning, but then I realized over time that it was helping me learn more about myself and my community. And the center really helped me do that through the work that we did with the Iraqi American community, which was, the first of its kind. I've never really seen other centers or other, programs represent my community in such way, which was I was happy to work on and help develop some of the program.
Well, why don't you tell people what we did? Because I think most of the audience won't
Yeah,
have an idea what we did.
yeah, sure. Yeah. So we did basically oral histories on the first wave of Iraqi refugees. And first of all, we wanted to document the community that was living in Rafah, which was a camp in Saudi Arabia after the Intifada in Iraq. And that kind of slowly transitioned into kind of documenting refugees from the Iraqi community, which we still have the website up, is Unsettled Lives, if you're interested in looking into it.
We can put a link to it. We can put a link to it in with this conversation. Yeah, and we did an exhibit that was shown on campus and that traveled around to 8 public libraries in southeastern Michigan. And then we also have an online exhibit, which we'll put a link to, so you can check it out if you're interested.
Yeah, and it made me really learn more about my community, kind of the struggles that Iraqi Americans face first coming to Dearborn. I remember a story that really stuck with me was, back home in Iraq, women or men, washing their home, they throw buckets of water like on the walls and all over because most of the homes were made of like brick and granite. But here it's different. So when they would do that in certain homes, that would become like a problem within the community, which I found very fascinating. I didn't think would be an issue, but it was just a story that stuck to me, and how like out of place people felt, and they didn't really want to integrate, and always had this idea in their mind that they were going back eventually, but that really never happened. They stayed here. So that was very interesting.
Yeah, they stayed here because their kids are here. Their kids speak English. Their kids are like you. They're going to university. They're getting ahead in life, and it gets harder and harder for the parents to go back once their kids are American and have grandchildren. And it's a very classic old story. Yeah, one of the things we did is we asked the people who had come in the 1990s, and these are mostly families that arrived in the 1990s. We asked them if they had any advice to give refugees arriving in Detroit today from places like Syria or Yemen. And that was honestly my favorite part of the project because they had really interesting advice to give. You know, for some people, it was like, make sure you learn English as quickly as you can so that you can really be American. Other people
Mhm.
said, don't learn English. If you learn English, you'll be an American. Or some people, one person said that the best advice he could give was to tell people to mow their lawn and take good care of their lawn. Because if they took good care of their lawn, then their neighbors would trust them and they would be able to
Mhm.
have good relations with their neighbors. And that's what you really need. If, you know, wherever you live, you need to know your neighbors and be sociable and, you know, friendly and generous with your neighbors. So just good advice for anybody, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
um, well, so yeah, that was an exciting project that we did through our public history class that we teach. And we've done a number of projects. So I'm sure if people look at our website, you'll be able to see those. Well, so tell me from your perspective, how the Arab community in Dearborn and Dearborn Heights is doing today. How has COVID affected them? What are the biggest challenges that the community is facing right now?
Yeah. Early on, I feel like because of how communal the Arab American community is, and just in general, Dearborn Heights community is, um, it was really hard, isolating and staying away from the community, especially, COVID hit last year right on the brink of Ramadan. And, it was very difficult to see that month just, you know, fly by with everybody just in isolation. Um, and we were losing a lot of people because some people also didn't want to follow the guidelines. They still snuck out and went to visit family members, thought that, they were being safe. They never met anybody, so they'll be okay. But, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And we did lose a lot of people in our community, from, community members, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, elected officials, so many people. And it was unfortunate. But I think slowly the Dearborn community is really now a model to follow. I think with the Ford Performance Center, that the work that they're doing there, in that satellite office that they just opened to vaccinate everybody within the city and in the cities around it, has been really, model work for other communities to follow. So I feel like we're leading on the issue now, but it's also still, a very sensitive topic, and the pandemic is still on. And I think we're still ways away to, be over and past this pandemic. So we'll see how things go, but I think we're doing well so far. Um, but it's still whiles away from this pandemic being over.
Well, we did have a lot of people in the community, and particularly in your line of work, who got sick. I mean, politicians are, they're in the very first days of the epidemic. Isaac Robinson was probably the first person that most of us know who died because of COVID. And he's the kind of person who was out there, shaking hands, having his picture taken with 1,000 people every day.
Hmm.
And the mayor of Dearborn was sick, the mayor of Hamtramck was sick, the mayor of Dearborn Heights passed away. I mean, this has been the sheriff. I mean, this has been a devastating disease for people who are in the who were on the front lines. I mean, that's all. It's just a frontline position. And the people in the sheriff's office. I mean, it's just been devastating to watch the disease sort of roll through all these different populations. So anyway, I just want to ask you to take care of yourself working as a
Yeah.
politician now. I know that you did some campaigning for Rashida last year too. Um, but so I'm also curious about things like how the business community in Dearborn is doing, all the entrepreneurs in Dearborn. I mean, it seems like people have uh, I mean, I'm not actually in Dearborn very often myself because I'm staying at
Yeah.
home, but
No, I hear you.
my sense is that the restaurant industry has kind of survived in Dearborn. I'm just wondering what you see in terms of how people are faring.
I think on the contrary, I think the restaurant business is really struggling right now. We had a very famous, kind of restaurant in Dearborn called Andiamo's, which recently just shut. It was bought by an Arab American recently, and I think they're gonna continue having it being a restaurant. But no, the restaurant community is struggling. We see a lot, being open at, 50% capacity or 25% capacity, when for the most part, a lot of these businesses are just making ends meet, is really difficult. But a lot of them have stayed open. A lot of the bigger chains, also smaller shops have, tried to stay open. Pick
Yeah,
up, delivery. I think they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, Andiamo's I think it's actually harder for the really big places like that, because their overhead is just so high. But it's
Yeah.
actually some of the mom and pop places that they might have been, deeply leveraged on their businesses. And I agree that working at 50% capacity, or for, some periods being closed altogether, or less than 50, only being able to do takeout and stuff like that, that it has been difficult. But I have, when I drive around town, I don't see a lot of, like in Ann Arbor, you see closures, you see shuttered businesses. I don't see
Yeah.
that when I'm in Dearborn. It's like the bakeries are still open, the grocery stores are still open, so I don't know. I think that
Yeah.
in Dearborn, they survived a little bit better than in other places.
Well, yeah. Well, if you're comparing to other cities, yeah, I think what we've did a good job of, making sure we support our local businesses. A lot of like local community members were doing kind of like, raffles. If you like, share this with your other friends, we'll donate $100 gift card to a local business. And a lot of people are doing that type of work, fundraising for, businesses that they support, doing a lot of delivery and pickup. So I think that really helped. And I think that's just the spirit of Dearborn, right? We want to support one another, want to see each other succeed and push forward as a community. So I think that's what really held us up. But I didn't think you were comparing to other cities. But yeah, if we're comparing to other cities, I think we're doing great. But then again, it's still a pandemic and people are still struggling.
Yeah, I agree. And we can't, Ramadan's coming again. And I mean, I saw that the Michigan Muslim Community Council has put out guidelines for the masajid this year, and they're not doing what they did last year, which was asking people to be closed. They want, only people who've been vaccinated to come. And if you want to come and you still haven't gotten the vaccine, you have to do a temperature test, you have to be masked, you have to be socially distanced. So it's going to be a really tough, I think that in a way, last Ramadan, people really felt like, okay, this is a chance for us to like go back and focus and be with our families, to do our Taraweeh at home and, connect with people online. But, especially like people in your line of work, the politicians who usually are at iftars every night.
I'm not a politician.
They don't get to see their families, you are, Habibi, you are at this point. But they were like relieved that they got to, be with their families for a change. But this year, I think it's just going to be like a halfway thing where people don't know what to do. They don't know how far they can go. I think this year it's going to be maybe more of a challenge than last year.
It is. And I think it might exacerbate the pandemic, to be honest with you. I want to be at the mosque. I want to be around friends and family and, go pray at the mosque. And it just feels good during Ramadan, right? Just being there with other people, breaking bread together. But still, I think because of the pandemic, it might be difficult, but we'll just see how the numbers are, in a month's time. And I think if people do follow the guidelines, people that are vaccinated and people get vaccinated, and also, make sure that they social distance and wear the mask, I think we should be fine. But then again, it's really hard to, trust people following guidelines. At the end of the day, you tell people what to do, but it's kind of on them to make sure they do it.
Yeah. Well, so I want to thank you for talking to us, and I want to offer my condolences to all the people out there who have lost a loved one, or who have family members who are still recovering from the virus. I know it's been a really hard year for people, and I think as we think about and look for the future, I think we really can't forget. We have to remember that there are a lot of people out there who are really grieving and mourning, and that there's a lot that we lost this last year. So in addition to, encouraging people to stay safe, I just, really offer my condolences. I know it's been a rough year for everybody. So, but thank you for talking to us, Ahmad. It was great to see you.
Thank you. Likewise, you as well.
Goodbye, everybody.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.